Instt. I am glad of this opportunity to address you. During the last 3 years, I have met many of you, both in the civil and defense services of this country. I have addressed you, discussed many matters with you, and worked in close collaboration with some of you. If I had my way, I would have liked to meet many more of you so that we might know each other better, for we are workers in a common cause and much depends on the degree of our mutual understanding. Many have praised you greatly, and many have sometimes unfairly criticized you. That was natural in the circumstances, and it is possible to find in most of us room for praise and room for criticism. Most of you have had to adapt yourselves to a new environment and to new conditions of work within a short period of time. I want to tell you that in the 3 years I have known you, I have found you as a whole loyal servants of the country. I have appreciated the way you have adapted yourselves to new conditions. Most of you have had to work much harder than before because the situation demanded hard work. You have applied yourselves to this work with goodwill and a desire to serve this country of ours, which has at last achieved its freedom. Those of you who are in the defense services has to face trials and tribulations and have stood a hard test successfully. You have thereby gained the praise of your countrymen. Have you gained something more, and that is self-confidence and faith in yourselves and your cause. Not only the men of the defense services, but all of us, whatever the capacity we have labored in, have stood the test of our faith and capacity during this early period of our freedom. It is difficult for all of us to adapt ourselves to changing conditions, and even when we do so physically, the mind lags behind. It must have been difficult for you who are accustomed to the routine and method of a different setup to adapt yourselves to a new democracy. It is just as difficult for others to develop the discipline that freedom demands. This process must inevitably take time, yet you have succeeded in a large measure. Every thinking person knows that the running of a modern government requires the machinery of highly organized, efficient, and loyal services. No government can function effectively without them. It is important that our services, even though faced with new tasks and new objectives, should be loyal and efficient, breathe the new air of democracy, and function in tune with the setup. I think the success we have had in this is satisfactory, but the ultimate test lies in the results we achieve. The only test is the advancement and welfare of the people we serve, and especially in a democracy, their goodwill. In hard times, goodwill may not be easily forthcoming, but loyal and efficient work in a great cause, even though it may not be immediately recognized, ultimately bears fruit. You serve the nation in a variety of ways and in many capacities. Some have the responsibility of high office, others work in humbler ways. Some are generals, others are ordinary soldiers in the army. In the services, as elsewhere, discipline has to be observed, and greater experience and capacity placed in a special position of authority. But whatever our rank of grade, we must always remember that we are comrades working for the same end and respect one another as comrades should do. We live in a society which has inherited great distinctions between the high and the low, the rich and the poor. We cannot change that suddenly. We make efforts to level these differences and to see that opportunity for progress comes to all. In all our dealings, we must remember our objectives and recognize the dignity of the individual and the worth of labor. Those who do not labor for the good of the community and only consume the labor of other are a burden and deserve no encouragement. Ours is a poor country, but it has tremendous resources and potentialities. We naturally want to develop these resources and get rid of the course of poverty and unemployment. Many of our superior services were built up in the tradition of countries that were much richer. This created a barrier between these services and the common man. We have to break down that barrier and gradually to adapt ways more in conformity with conditions prevailing in our country. The civil and defense services of a country must have proper conditions to work in assurance and security. The labor is worthy of his hire. A service can only be efficient if its employees are contented and have an objective to work for. We have tried to provide security and see that contentment can only come from the goodwill of the people, the ultimate arbiters of our destiny. Dear sirs, we were given to understand that you are anxious to exhibit your good at the Congress exhibition to be opened next month. We must confess that it is now sometimes since the matter was brought to your notice, but nevertheless we believe that you are still anxious to take part. If you are, we are glad to inform you that you will be thoroughly satisfied with the results. We have already received a number of inquiries about reservation of floor space. We are quite willing to help you and we would ask you to let us know your wishes at once. This is a case in which you will be well advised to act with speed as up to the moment of writing. We have already received as many as 100 applications. You may ask what is our object. We strongly believe the section of the trade in which you are engaged ought to be represented in the exhibition. It is for that reason that we have not up to the present time dealt with any of the applications. When a similar exhibition was held 2 years ago, we were in the unhappy position of having to refuse several exhibitors who sent in their requirements at too late a date for us to make proper arrangements and all the best stands had been taken. You will be interested to know that we have been able to arrange for the next exhibition to include special section for the various textile exhibits. Instead of one section, there will be 4. The charges for space are shown in the enclosed folder and as you will see are intended to cover ordinary requirements. We shall be pleased to send on request special quotation for exceptional cases and we should advise you to send in your application not later than the date we have already mentioned. We enclose a sketch plan on which is marked the space which has been reserved for the various exhibits. You will see that prices vary according to the amount of space which is taken and according to the actual position of the stands in the exhibition. Yours faithfully.